In case you were wondering, I took a look at some of the science surrounding exercise and walking and how it impacts the body, how it can help people who have chronic pain. And then for a month, I tried it myself. Let's get into it. So, I'm pretty sure you've heard this one. You know, your pain would be greatly improved if you started exercising more. Taking walks. Are you exercising? And then there's that pause, that significant pause, where so much is happening in it, and you feel judged, attacked, and seen, but misunderstood. You think, yeah, I'm in this much pain, and now you want me to knowingly move my body around and do things? It'll make me hurt more. I can't handle that right now. I'm not putting myself through that. Well, I've been there a lot in my 19 years of patientdom, whatever. Anyway, so I wanted to get to the bottom of why so many doctors throw this in my face, or did, and see how walking impacts me personally. If there are impacts in my pain, energy, and even weight. My main issue has been back pain. And I've got to say, when I read a March 2019 study that showed no improvement for patients with back pain when they added walking to exercise, I felt really validated. I'd been missing out on a silver bullet all this time. I knew it, right? Na 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 boo boo, thank you very much, sir. But then I saw that people were more active on the days that they walked for a lower limb and spinal pain study. They didn't do very much on the weekends still, but they did more and were up more on walking days. So maybe it was increasing energy levels at least, which is an issue for me. Or they're less stiff, so it's safer to move. So whatever the core reason for it, I was intrigued. Then I found out that walking helps joint pain, which doesn't affect me, but it affects a lot of people. So joints don't have good blood supply going, but they do have cells that are alive and need supplies dropped from time to time. Moving provides those shipments to the cells. It forces fluid in and out of and around the area, introducing those new materials to the joints and their cellular components for them to make use of. People with creaky knees, for example, will feel an increase in pain to adding walking to their routine, but over time, the muscles around the joints are strengthened, which supports the joint and puts less direct stress on it. And at the same time, the joint is being rehabbed as well as the body can renovate it. So the whole area gets a much needed glow up or tune up. This can help reduce symptoms or make them entirely disappear in some cases, which is really cool. The whole moving thing is a recurring theme that I keep hearing. We need to get you moving. And the reason is circulation. If you don't really move much, your circulatory system doesn't work as hard. There's less circulation to areas of inflammation that may be causing pain. When you move, circulation increases and you get more blood flow to the area. More nutrients, building blocks, get to the areas that need them. You can have a buildup of lactic acid too that gets flushed out by the circulation. And since buildup can cause pain in this way, walking and moving more can theoretically decrease pain levels in your entire body. Thinking back to the arthritis research, the strengthening of muscles is a key component to how joint pain improved. Walking helps with a lot of muscle groups, like core muscles, low back muscles, and thigh muscles. Since I had a lot of pain from standing and had been deconditioned from years of being bedbound and only slightly active outside of physical therapy, I knew my muscles needed some major work. If they could just get accustomed to me moving, I could maybe see improvement in my pain upon standing and leaning and walking for longer periods of time than we're usually comfortable. So now for the walks. Because I was starting at a place where I hadn't been active, I started by doing 15-minute walks. and even that was a stretch. I wanted to ease in and make sure I wasn't doing anything that would aggravate my back or to get shin splints. I had those on my honeymoon from running the length of the London Heathrow airport with garment bags flopping over my shoulder. It was a huge mess. I arrived at the gate looking like a swamp monster, and they were just finishing boarding, but we did make it. Still, I ended up having to use supportive tape for days, and I couldn't walk a lot of the sites that we wanted to in Scotland. I was still in pain from the trip there all the way up until the journey home. So at 15 minutes a day, I didn't experience much extra pain. Mostly I noticed tightness in my hips and soreness in my low back, but my legs were fine. I didn't feel really motivated to do the walks, but I wanted to see where it would go if I could stick to it. Then I realized on day 4 that I had walked 18 minutes without realizing it. So I kept walking for 2 more minutes and bam, I had my first 20-minute walk. After that, the walks were generally 20 minutes. After about a week, I wasn't getting as sweaty or out of breath. And I thought maybe I had more energy, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't dreading the walks though, and I had been. Some days it was like my body was craving the activity. It was a relief to start, to get out there. The timing was perfect too, because autumn is underway, not winter yet, and I was able to go outside without getting a rash from my sun allergy and being instantly overheated. There's usually a nice breeze in my neighborhood, and that was also refreshing. Watching the leaves turn day by day is a luxury I haven't had since I was a kid, and it really added to the experience. There's also research that shows walking outside in a natural environment can help lower the stress hormone cortisol, which is great because cortisol can also amp up the stress response, which is not good for pain and inhibits weight loss. There were days that I wasn't so excited about walking when I was hurting, or more often just when I felt exhausted and mentally foggy. I didn't feel much like being awake, much less walking. But most of the time, I felt better after I walked. Then there were days where it rained really hard, and I'm like a cat. I hate the damp, so those days, I walked inside. This is where I found out something interesting that I did not expect. I had way more back pain when I used my treadmill versus when I walked outside or just around the apartment. You'd think, with it being a more consistent pace, with more repetitive motion, it would be soothing on the muscles. I don't know if it's my posture or what, but I had more pain. I felt like I needed to take breaks. That wasn't something that happened often on my walks outside. My dad also, I called him and because I was so confused, and he was like, yeah, my patients report that all the time, that when they walk on the treadmill, they hurt more. So I'm not quite sure what it is, but there's something about treadmill walking that causes an increase in pain. Who knew? So when I noticed this, I started walking around the apartment instead. I think my husband thought I'd lost what marbles I had left when he saw my weird circuit for the first time, but it was genuinely less painful, and I got the joy of having my cat lead me to certain locations or playing fetch with her every time I circled by the sofa. Half of the week, my husband was in another city for work, so I took my walk solo, carefully, mindfully. The other half of the week, he went with me, which was great. We took occasional walks before when I was more seriously ill, but I was pretty embarrassed by having to stop after a couple of minutes and take a significant break or quit entirely. And I didn't enjoy them very much, you know? But now that we're married and he's seen more of my illness up close, I felt less anxious about him seeing me struggle. If anything, it's made him prouder of me for fighting through it. And it was awesome to have his support on this. On cold days, on rainy days, he was right out there beside me. I was doing so well that by the middle of the second week, I started adding little mini walks to my days, inside in the evenings, if I felt like it. Sometimes it was because I was close to a goal in my steps and I wanted to meet it, and sometimes it was just that I felt like I could move, so I did. 2 of the days I didn't walk. One was a travel day, going to see my mother-in-law, whom I adore. One was a day that my back was flaring up badly, and I was genuinely worried about handling added pain. I don't know how my back would react to the walk in that situation. Sitting up even was painful, so it made me pretty cautious. I tried moving around some to experiment, and my body was just like, no, you don't try it. So I listened. I tried to get up and walk for a minute or two here and there, but that was pretty much the extent that day. Once I got in the rhythm of doing it, having the ritual of walking, I enjoyed the change of pace. Pun not intended, but entirely approved of. It took about a week and a half to be able to tell for certain, but I definitely did see an improvement in my energy. Overall, I felt more alert and motivated to do things. I was able to write a paper in record time. It's weird though. I can do things better. I'm more efficient. With physical tasks, I'm quicker too. I shocked my husband by getting up the stairs in record time without thinking about it. We always joke about me being a turtle, especially on stairs. I'm slow. I always get there, but I just trudge, and he knows eventually I will catch up. Well, now I'm closer to how a normal person would move. With mental tasks, I don't have to search and reach for words that don't come nearly as often. At one point, in this whole health struggle and journey, I wondered if I'd ever have my mental clarity back, or if I was stuck with a cotton head forever due to my illness and meds and just all of it. While I'm still somewhat foggy, at least part of the time, it's nowhere near as bad as it was. I had 60% fewer foggy days in total compared to my usual number, with some days being partially cloudy but clearing up after the walk or I'd been up a few hours. However, sleep. Yikes. I don't know what happened, but around the end of the first week, I started having real sleep issues. Like, Ambien could not get me down. I don't know if it was my anxiety because it's the end of my first semester, or if it was my circadian rhythm being thrown off, or what, but I was going to bed from 2 to 4 a.m. every night. I was always tired, but not sleepy at night. Hi, chronic fatigue, I see you. I didn't want it to hold me back. Sometimes I didn't feel like doing the walks, but I would do them anyway, and I could get through it. It didn't make me worse, and it didn't make my pain worse. But it didn't help the sleep issue, which is a bit of a bummer. But I have pre-existing issues about my sleep that are probably just flaring up, so I don't want to throw the walks under the bus as being responsible for this, but I just noticed it. I do feel like since I had more energy some days, it was harder to switch off, but even on really crappy days, I was still able to do this and have less pain, especially the sciatic pain that made sleeping harder and gets worse when I'm more sedentary or laying in bed more. My pain flares were always associated with dramatic weather shifts or increases in activity, like traveling to see my mother-in-law or getting out every day for over a week to take care of my dad's dogs. It's strange to me because now I'm able to be so much more active, but that activity on sequential days still really derails me really hard. That weirdness aside, I had wondered how the walks would impact my weight. It is added activity after all. While I call my longer walks exercise, I think some of my little ones are non-exercise activity. Interestingly, that can boost metabolism more than exercise does. Increasing non-exercise activity thermogenesis can be tricky, but if you can, it's helpful for weight loss. It doesn't trigger an increase in cortisol levels, that stress hormone that I mentioned before. So, because cortisol can inhibit weight loss and metabolism increase, having non-exercise activity thermogenesis is a great way to work around the cortisol issue. It's a great way to lose weight without increasing pain because cortisol makes inflammation worse. I wouldn't say I have a problem with my weight, but I am heavier than I look, and my husband and I would like to start a family in the next few years. I want to do as much as I can to be as healthy as I can for pregnancy. Weighing less will reduce my risk of gestational diabetes and stave off a time where my back pain may flare up and reduce my activity level throughout the rest of the pregnancy. So, if I'm honest, I was hoping to see a change, but, well, I wasn't betting on it. I'd been on a low-calorie diet for over a year, just enough to keep my body from flipping the switch into conservation or starvation mode. And while being miserable on so few calories, I hadn't lost a single pound. It was like my body just wants to stay stuck on the number it likes. Occasionally I would gain a pound or two, usually hormonally, but I would always go right back to that one number. I tried vastly reducing soda intake, no candy, fewer carbs, more protein, more fruits and vegetables. I even did this while I was doing physical therapy. No dice. I tried intermittent fasting for a long time. I didn't see any results from that for a while. But I tried a thing called OMAD, or 1 meal a day, around the time that I started walking. I had a 3-hour window in which I ate. Maybe a super protein shake to open with, then a main meal, taking care to get all the nutrients that I needed, and then close it with berries, whipped cream, instead of something like candy. Or if I did have any candy, it would be with my meal instead of a snack of its own, which adds an extra insulin spike just for that snack. Those things in combination finally moved the needle for me. After this walking thing, I'm down 5 pounds in a month. For me, that's like 4 or 5 months of good work. So I'm really surprised. I am startled. I am aghast by this. I've lost several inches around my waist. My arms are slimmer, and while my legs aren't much slimmer, they're more toned. So the composition has shifted somewhat from fat more to protein, muscle. The leggings I could only wear under flowing tops because the waistband just about cut me in half and made just a superb muffin top are my go-to leggings. The others are so loose that my phone smacks me with every step if I put it in my back pocket. The energy aspect really had me curious because so many times I'd been told, your fatigue is from opiates, just get off of those. Like that's easy. Then you'll have more energy. I did get off of them, and it was really hard, but I didn't see an energy increase, at least not one that I detected. They said sleep less because I'd been sleeping about 11 hours on average, partially due to the opiates. I'd wake up so often in my sleep from pain that I was having to go for quantity over quality. So I slept 7 to 9 hours just to see no increase in energy. Be more active, they said. I was. No increase. Get out of the house more. It's sunlight that you need. Your circadian rhythm is off. No screens an hour before bed. It reduces your melatonin production. That's what's probably going on. So I got out, got some sun, though not too much because of the sun allergy, pesky. I turned off my screens. I took melatonin supplements even. No dice. Then they just said, well, you have chronic fatigue. This is what you should expect. It's how you are. That's when I figured they had just given up. We had tried a lot of things. And the thing is, I had been diagnosed with CF the whole time, and they kept blaming something else. But at this point, they just acknowledged, yeah, by the way, yeah, you do have chronic fatigue. This is it for you. So I just figured, accept it. It's not going to get better. I hoped maybe this would do something, but learned helplessness seeps in sometimes, and you think, well, this isn't going to work. Nothing else worked. So I wasn't doing it with super high hopes for a change in energy. But guys, it did help. Like, it worked. I don't know if it's the autumn sunlight, which is like weaker, so I don't break out in a rash immediately, or if it's just the exercise or the ritual of it all, just getting moving, the circulation. Some people say if you've been on intermittent fasting for a while, eventually a switch flips and you do have more energy and mental clarity during your fasting period. But like, I feel better. Something about this worked. I have no idea. It's like some voodoo to me, because nothing has worked in like the 15 years that I've been miserably exhausted and searching. Sometimes my fatigue plagued me more than my pain did. That's saying something. I felt so weak sometimes I'd almost fall over when I would stand up. I'd cry in the shower because raising my arms to wash my hair was such a struggle, and it hurt, and I couldn't do it. I was so tired and weak that I felt like I could barely hold them up. I had to rinse in sections with breaks. I was almost faint from how weak I felt. I had to have a stool in the shower so I could sit down, because standing long enough was a problem. While that's improved dramatically in the last year, since I had that surgery and physical therapy, I still had days where I needed to drag that stool out and put it in the shower because I wasn't sure I was going to make it. Well, that's pretty much gone, except for one very, very bad day that I had where I didn't walk and I didn't move. I was hurting so much I did not want to move. I just felt really zapped. And I think part of that was just autumn hitting, and autumn always messes with me. I have a whole video about how it just smacks me up and down the street. And it takes no prisoners, man. That day it was in full force. To get to the point where I could stand up straight and try a walk like this has been a real journey. 14 months ago, I was pretty much bedbound. 100% disabled, as one of my specialists said. As a 31-year-old, that's hard to hear, but I was lucky enough that the surgery worked for most of my back pain, which had been the primary complaint. With that momentum I had, I was able to jump into physical therapy as soon as I had healed up and work on strengthening the muscles that had been so deconditioned over years and years of being sedentary, bedbound, or just ill enough that I wasn't moving very much. the risk associating with moving, of the added pain that I felt was lurking after I'd move, it kept me from trying and moving at all, really. So I've had years and years of deconditioning, even though I was only bedbound for about 3. It's interesting because sports scientists have found that even elite athletes lose 1% of their strength per day that they are out of commission and on bed rest. And I was no athlete when my real mobility issues began. So I want to point out that without all this work to get to this point, I wouldn't have been able to even attempt a challenge like this. And while I'm now making a record of my progress, I can't go back and capture that year and how it felt for me. I wish I had, because that was the beginning of me coming back to myself. But I have started now. Still, I do deal with pain, and there were days that I needed to change when I walked, or how long I walked at one time to accommodate it. And then that one day that I listened to my body and didn't walk at all, really. I still stand by that decision. I think it would have made the back pain worse to a level that I would have needed an opiate strength pain pill to cope. I didn't walk, and I was able to handle my existing pain level without opiates. I stretched beforehand on the first days, and when I added time. I slowed down or took breaks when my hips felt tense, and one day I ended at 15 minutes because I could tell they were just so not with it, and I didn't want to sabotage my next day's walk by overdoing it. So I just had a 15-minute walk that day. I used heat before or after, or both when needed. I waited until my Tylenol and Advil combo worked before attempting a walk on iffy days. Warm baths and Epsom salts and lavender really helped my achy muscles and joints. I wore my high-octane sunglasses to avoid triggering a migraine on sunny days. I took shorter walks and just got back up and walked around the apartment here and there as I could on bad days or cloudy days, a couple hundred steps here and there. One day I got up like a dozen times because I just couldn't stick with it for very long due to pain. I was also really weak and faint, which we still don't quite understand about me, but it is happening less, so it wasn't all pep in my step and autumn sunshine. And the experience overall, though, has been extremely positive, and I'm happy I was able to try it. Overall, I'm thrilled. The only regret I have is, honestly, that I haven't attempted longer walks than 30 minutes. It's hard for me to keep going without a break now, though. Part of chronic fatigue is being exercise intolerant, which I think is just a heinous term. It makes it sound like we're just being lazy, kind of, but I need a significant break after I'm active, like a cheetah. And getting back out for another 30 minutes when it's getting dark so early it's difficult. But I'm hoping now that my husband understands the method to my madness, my indoor circuit will become more normal until weather conditions improve. I don't know if I'll see big benefits from doing much added walking, but I may do another video in the spring where I walk an hour a day and see how that impacts me, both in terms of my pain, my energy, and even possibly weight loss. Hi, editing me here. So while I was doing the walking challenge, took little videos of myself here and there, kind of updating what was going on, and I was trying to figure out how to work them into the video, and it didn't feel, I don't know, natural. It just, I couldn't work them in. So I'm going to make them their own video, and I'm going to post it next week. So there's that to look forward to if you're interested in anything of, like the vlog type thing, and just sort of seeing how my attitude toward it evolved. It was interesting seeing the clips back and seeing that there was a progression in how I felt about the walks and how the walks made me feel. So that is upcoming, but it's not in this video because it's already long enough. Bye! If you want to try this, I suggest starting at a lower threshold than you think you're comfortable with. No one wants injuries, and you could be out for a week if you overdo it. If you start low, even 2 to 5 minutes a day, and then add a minute every day or every other day, you can find your temporary boundaries more easily without exceeding them and getting hurt. Over time, whether it's a week or a month, you may be able to work up to something like 15 minutes a day. Even if you have to take shorter walks, 3 5-minute walks, that could be beneficial to your pain level and mental clarity in the long term. And of course, as always, get the green light from your doctor before you try anything like this. On that note, I'm wishing you the least pain necessary, the highest quality of life possible, and an awesome day. Stay curious. You never know what you'll find out next. Bye.